Welcome back to the deep dive. It is Monday, March 2, 2026.
A very happy Monday to everyone listening.
Yeah, exactly. The coffee is definitely brewing today.
Oh, absolutely.
And, if you're anything like the business owners that we've been tracking this week, those Q1 targets are pinned to the wall right now.
Staring right back at you.
Right. And the initial optimism of the new year is, well, it's probably starting to collide with the hard reality of operational costs.
It's a very common feeling this time of year. I mean, every year.
It really is. You're looking at your spreadsheets, you're looking at your projections.
Doesn't make the math work.
Yeah, and maybe, just maybe, you're staring at a piece of paper from the local council that makes absolutely no sense to you.
The dreaded brown envelope.
The brown envelope.
Okay.
So today, we are tackling something that feels like it's looming on the horizon for every single business owner in the UK right now.
It's the elephant in the room for physical businesses.
It is. We are looking at the financial landscape of 2026, but we aren't talking about generic growth strategies today.
No marketing hacks today.
None of that. We are zooming in on one very specific, very thorny, and frankly, often terrifying topic.
Non-domestic rates.
Non-domestic rates, or as we all lovingly call them, business rates.
The tax that everyone pays, but, very few people actually understand.
Right.
And even fewer people know how to actually optimize.
Exactly. And look, I know what you're thinking right now. Business rates.
Sounds a bit dry.
Yeah, is this going to be like listening to paint dry? But stick with us.
Please do, because it really matters.
It does, because we have a fantastic source today. It's called the 43.2p multiplier, Navigating 2026 Business Rates for SMEs.
It's a great document.
It really frames this whole conversation around a single number.
Just a decimal point, really.
Yeah, 43.2p.
Which sounds incredibly insignificant when you say it out loud like that.
It does.
Just 43 pence. It sounds like, I don't know, loose change you'd find down the back of the sofa.
Right. It sounds like the price of a chocolate bar back in 1995.
If only.
But as we dug into this material, it became very clear that this specific number, 43.2p, is basically the difference between a profitable year and a struggle for survival.
For a huge number of small and medium-sized enterprises.
Absolutely. So our mission today for this deep dive is simple. We are going to decode this.
We're going to break it down.
We are going to figure out how the 2026 rules affect you, the listener, and your business.
Are you better off or are you worse off?
Exactly. And what is this actually going to cost you in hard-earned cash?
Because that is the crucial so what here.
Yeah. Why does this matter right now?
Well, business rates are often the second or third biggest cost for a physical business.
Right after rent and staff.
Exactly.
Right.
Yet, because the calculation seems so opaque, so confusing, people just accept the bill.
They just pay it.
They treat it like the weather, like it's just something that happens to them.
I love that analogy.
They don't question it, and they definitely don't optimize it.
So we are going to stop treating this like the weather today?
We're going to treat it like a variable you can control.
Yes. We're going to stop accepting the bill and start interrogating it. And honestly, I'm actually excited to decode a tax topic. Is that weird?
It's a little weird, yeah.
I'll own it.
But I appreciate the enthusiasm. You just have to remember the context here. We are in a revaluation cycle in 2026.
Right. The valuations have shifted.
Which always brings anxiety. The market values change, the government adjusts the multipliers, and suddenly your fixed costs aren't so fixed anymore.
It throws everything up in the air.
So grounding this conversation in the reality of that 43.2p multiplier is a really smart way to cut through all the noise.
It gives us a tangible anchor.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this before we get into the heavy math.
And there will be a little bit of math.
There will be, but I promise it will be painless.
And potentially very profitable for you.
Yes. But first, we need to get our vocabulary straight. So let's start with defining the beast.
The terminology.
What are we actually talking about when we say non-domestic rates? Because it sounds very formal.
It is formal. But at its most basic level, it's a tax on the occupation of non-domestic property.
Occupation being the key word there.
That is the crucial distinction. It is not a tax on your profit.
Right.
It isn't a tax on your turnover.
Okay.
It is a tax purely on the fact that you exist in a physical space that isn't a home.
Okay, let me make sure I've got this. If I rent a shop and I don't sell a single widget for a whole year.
A terrible year for business.
A completely disastrous year. I make zero profit. I still owe this money.
Absolutely. The council does not care about your profit and loss sheet.
Wow.
They care about your square footage and your location.
Yeah.
If you use a building for something that isn't living in it.
So a shop, an office, a warehouse.
A factory, a studio, you contribute to the cost of local services.
It's basically the business equivalent of council tax.
It is, but the mechanism for calculating it is vastly more aggressive.
Right, because with residential council tax, you have those neat little bands.
Band A, Band B, and so on.
It feels somewhat static, but business rates seem to involve this mysterious thing the source calls the multiplier.
Also known colloquially as the pence in the pound.
Pence in the pound. Can you break that down? Because that sounds almost Victorian.
It does sound a bit antiquated, doesn't it?
It really does.
But think of the multiplier as the lever that the central government pulls to control how much tax they actually collect from the business sector overall.
So the government sets this number.
Central government sets it, yes. And it's usually tied to inflation.
So it creeps up over time.
Exactly. In our context for 2026, this number determines the size of your bill relative to the value of your property.
Okay, so if I can try an analogy here.
Go for it.
Is it fair to say the multiplier is kind of like an exchange rate?
An exchange rate. I like
Like I have the value of my property, which is one currency, let's call it rental value currency,
Okay.
and I need to convert it into tax-owed currency. And the multiplier is simply the rate I have to use for that conversion.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. Yeah.
Okay, good.
You have a property value, and the multiplier tells you what percentage of that value you have to hand over to the state every single year.
So if the multiplier is 50p, I hand over 50% of my rental value in tax.
Precisely. If it's 40p, you hand over 40%.
Got it.
And here's where it gets fascinating, and really where the whole better off or worse off question starts.
Because there isn't just one exchange rate.
There are two.
Okay, the plot thickens.
The system is bifurcated. We have a two-tier system.
And knowing which tier you are in is basically the first step in not getting ripped off.
It's the foundation of everything,
Okay, walk us through the tiers. Let's start with the one we want to avoid.
the big one. First, you have Tier 1. This is the standard multiplier.
Okay.
This is for the big players. The large warehouses, the department stores, the massive corporate office blocks.
Right.
In the source material we're looking at, the projected rate for the standard multiplier in 2026 is hovering around 54.3p.
54.3p. Let's just pause on that for a second.
It's high.
That means for every pound of value my property has, I have to give the government 54.3 pence.
Correct. That is more than half.
That is wild. It effectively means that over the course of a standard lease, say, just 2 years, you have paid the entire rental value of your property again, just in tax.
It is a massive, massive burden. It's actually one of the highest property taxes in the OECD.
I can see why.
And it puts a massive strain on cash flow. Because, again, as you said earlier, this has absolutely nothing to do with whether you were actually making money.
It's just the cost of having the keys to the door.
Exactly.
Ouch. Okay, so that's the standard multiplier, the big business tax.
Right.
But our mission today is focusing on SMEs. We are focusing on the little guy, the independent retailer, the local architect. Tell us about Tier 2.
Tier 2 is the small business multiplier, the SBM.
The preferential rate.
Exactly. It's the government saying, we acknowledge that smaller businesses operate with tighter margins. We know the high street is struggling, so we are going to offer a discount on that exchange rate.
A lifeline, basically.
And the magic number for this deep dive, the number highlighted in our source for 2026, is 43.2p.
43.2p. Okay, so let's look at the gap there.
The spread between the two.
Yeah. We have 54.3p on the high end versus 43.2p on the low end. That's a difference of, what is that, roughly 11.1 pence?
Roughly, yes. And that might sound small.
It really does sound small.
You might hear that and say, oh, it's just 11 pence, who cares?
Right.
But in percentage terms, when you multiply that across the whole value of a property, that is a massive discount.
It's huge.
It represents a significant saving. If you fall into that lower bucket, you are immediately better off than a larger competitor next door, purely on a basis of tax efficiency.
So falling into that lower bucket is step one of survival.
It's the very first hurdle.
Because if you're paying 54p, you're already losing the game compared to someone paying 43p. You are running the race with a backpack full of rocks.
Precisely. It's a competitive advantage that is baked right into the tax code, but only if you actually qualify.
Which brings up a huge point.
And this is why the structural classification of your business is almost more important than your operational efficiency.
That's a strong statement.
But it's true. You can be the most efficient business in the world pinching every penny, but if you are wrongly classified into the higher multiplier, you are bleeding cash unnecessarily.
Which brings us perfectly to our next area, the critical thresholds.
Where is the line?
Exactly, because clearly everyone listening wants the 43.2p rate. Nobody wakes up and says, I'd love to pay the 54p rate today, please. Take my money.
Nobody does that.
So where is the line in the sand? How do I know if my business is eligible?
The source material is very clear on this. The line in the sand, the hard border between the two tiers is 51,000 pounds.
51,000 pounds. And just to be absolutely crystal clear, that is 51,000 pounds of rateable value, correct?
Correct. And we have to make this distinction because it confuses people constantly.
It really does.
Rateable value, or RV, is not the same as the rent you pay to your landlord.
It's not your turnover.
It's not your profit.
I think this trips so many people up. They look at their lease agreement and say, well, I pay $40,000 a year in rent, so I'm under the 51,000 threshold.
That's a very dangerous assumption because that's not how it works.
So how does it work?
Rateable value is a figure assigned by the Valuation Office Agency, the VOA.
The government valuers?
Yes.
Yes.
It's their estimate of what your property could let for on the open market at a specific valuation date.
Okay.
Sometimes it's lower than your actual rent, which is great.
We love that.
Sometimes, unfortunately, it's higher.
Right.
But that RV number is the foundational number. Before we even talk about multipliers or final bills, you have to know your RV.
So the golden rule is, if your property has a rateable value of less than 51,000 pounds, you get the 43.2p multiplier.
Yes.
And if you are at 51,001 pound, you're bumped up.
Generally, yes. You move straight into the standard multiplier territory.
That feels like a massive cliff edge.
It is a cliff edge. In the tax world, we call it a hard threshold.
Yeah.
In a lot of tax systems, like income tax, you have marginal rates.
Where you only pay the higher tax on the amount that goes above the threshold.
Exactly. But in business rates, if you cross that 51,000 line, the entire calculation changes.
Oh, wow. So let's play that out for a second. If my RV is 50,900 pounds.
You pay the 43.2p rate on that whole amount.
But if I am at 51,100 pounds.
You pay the 54.3p rate on the whole 51,100.
That is terrifying.
It is.
That tiny increase in valuation, literally 200 pounds of value, triggers the higher multiplier on the whole sum. Your bill jumps by thousands of pounds instantly.
It creates this really weird distortion in the market where businesses effectively pray for their valuation to be slightly lower.
I bet.
And this is why, if you are listening to this right now and you know your RV is sitting at, say, 51,500 or 52,000.
You're sweating right now.
You should be looking at appealing that valuation immediately.
Right, because if you can argue it down by just a couple of thousand pounds.
You don't just save the tax on that 2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
You save 11 pence on every single pound of the remaining 50,000.
That's incredible. Getting under that 51K threshold really is the single most high-value administrative task you can do.
It's the biggest insight here. Don't just look at the final bill. Look at your classification.
But okay, for the purpose of this deep dive, let's assume our listener has done the work or they are just safely under that line anyway.
They're an SME.
They have a shop or a typical office and their RV is well under 51K. They have secured the 43.2p multiplier.
They are in the club.
Exactly. We've secured the good rate. Now we need to figure out what that actually costs.
The math part.
Yeah. We're going to run the numbers, and I want to make this real for people listening.
Let's do it.
The formula in the source document is pretty simple. Rateable value multiplied by the small business multiplier equals the gross annual bill.
Correct. And I really want to emphasize the word gross there. Gross annual bill.
Right.
That means the bill before any other release or discounts are applied. This is the base cost.
Okay, understood. So I want to look at two specific scenarios here, because I think they paint two very different pictures of what business survival looks like in 2026.
Okay, paint the picture for us. What's the first one?
Let's call this scenario A, the medium retail unit. This is what we'll call the better off but paying scenario.
All right, give me the facts.
You have a nice little shop on the high street. Not huge, but decent footfall.
Good location.
Yeah. You sell, let's say, artisanal coffee and pastries.
Nice.
The valuation office says your rateable value is 30,000 pounds.
30,000. Okay, so you are well under the 51K threshold.
Definitely.
You are definitely using the 43.2p multiplier. You are safe from the cliff edge we just talked about.
Right. So I take my calculator, I punch in 30,000, I multiply it by 0.432.
And what do you get?
The number staring back at me is 12,960 pounds.
Almost 13,000 pounds a year.
That is a lot of money.
It is a massive overhead.
To put that in context, If you are selling coffees at £4 a pop,
which is standard these days.
that is over 3,200 coffees you have to sell just to pay this one tax bill.
It's about 10 coffees every single day of the year,
Mm.
purely for the privilege of occupying the building.
Just to keep the council happy.
Exactly. That's before you pay for the beans, the milk, the barista's wages, or the actual rent to the landlord.
That really puts it in perspective. That 13 grand is a significant marketing budget.
The new delivery van.
It's a part-time employee,
Right.
and that is just gone, paid to the local council.
It is, and yet, and this is the crazy part, this is the better off scenario.
How on earth is that better off?
Yeah.
It feels incredibly painful.
We'll look at the alternative.
Okay.
If you were forced to use the standard multiplier of roughly 54p, let's say you were just over that higher threshold, that bill would be over £16,000.
Right.
So by being under the threshold and getting the 43.2p rate, you have saved over £3,000.
So you are better off by 3 grand.
That's a lot of coffee saved.
True. But, and this is the big, but you still have to write a check for nearly £13,000.
You do.
And for a business with an RV of 30,000, is there any other help available? Any other reliefs?
Generally speaking, no.
Nothing.
There is no small business rate relief for you at that level. You are considered small enough for the lower multiplier, but too big for the actual relief.
You are in the squeezed middle.
The middle ground where you just have to pay. It's tough.
That is a very tough pill to swallow. You're small, but you're not small enough to get a free ride. You're just paying.
Exactly. You are paying for the privilege of occupation. And in 2026, with costs rising everywhere else, that $12,900 is a heavy anchor to drag around.
Okay, let's look at scenario B then, because this is the one that really caught my eye in the research.
Let's do it.
Let's call it the small office space. This is where the real magic happens.
Okay, set the scene.
You're a consultant, maybe a freelance graphic designer.
Fellow operator.
Yeah. You have a small office in a business park out of town. Or maybe a small unit in a creative quarter.
Okay.
Your rateable value is exactly £12,000.
12,000. Got it.
So if I run the math on that, 12,000 multiplied by 0.432,
Following the formula.
that gives me a bill of £5,184.
On paper, yes. That is your gross bill.
5 grand. That's still a chunky amount for a small one-person business.
It's not pocket change.
That's a holiday. That's a high-end laptop and some serious software licenses.
It is.
But, and here is where it gets really interesting. I think you're going to interrupt me right about now.
I am interrupting you because nobody in this specific scenario should be paying £5,184.
Why?
If you are paying that, you are doing something terribly wrong
Okay, explain.
because of the game changer. Small business rate relief. SBRR.
This is the holy grail of business rates.
It really is. The UK government has a scheme where if your property's rateable value is £12,000 or less, you are eligible for 100% relief.
100% relief.
100%.
That means your bill isn't 5 grand.
Your bill is zero.
Yeah.
Nothing. Zilch.
That is incredible. So going back to our theme of better off or worse off, in scenario B, you are infinitely better off.
You are effectively occupying the property tax-free as far as business rates are concerned.
That creates a huge distortion in the market, doesn't it?
Massive. The business at 30,000 RV pays 13 grand. The business at 12,000 RV pays literally zero.
The difference in physical size might not even be that huge between those two units.
But the difference in cost is infinite.
But wait, there's a gap between scenario A and scenario B.
Ah, yes.
We had the cafe at 30,000 paying full price. We have the designer at 12,000 paying nothing. What happens to the person sitting at, say, 14,000?
Right. You found the taper zone.
The taper zone, also known as the danger zone.
It's a bit dramatic, but yeah. The relief doesn't just vanish the second you hit £12,001.
That would be another terrible cliff edge.
And the government actually tried to avoid a cliff edge here. So between £12,001 and £15,000, the relief tapers off.
It's a sliding scale.
Exactly. Basically, for every pound your RV goes over the 12,000 mark, you lose a percentage of your relief.
How does the math work on that?
Roughly speaking, at 12,000, you pay 0%. At 13,500, which is exactly halfway through the taper zone, you pay roughly 50% of the normal bill.
Okay.
And at 15,000, the relief hits 0% and you pay the full whack.
So if you are sitting at 14,800 pounds,
You are getting a tiny, tiny sliver of relief, maybe just a few £100 knocked off. But you are mostly paying the full bill.
and this is exactly why knowing your exact RV is so critical.
It dictates everything.
The difference between an RV of 12,000 and 12,500 is actual cash out of your pocket,
Exactly. If you're at 12,500, you're paying, what, a sixth of the bill?
which is nearly 1,000 pounds.
Right. So again, if you are in that taper zone, check your valuation. Dig into it.
If you can argue your 12,500 RV down to an even 12,000, you save 1,000 pounds a year instantly.
Every single year of the revaluation cycle, it's incredibly high ROI for filling out some paperwork.
Speaking of paperwork, I want to pivot to something that I found genuinely shocking in the source material.
A trap.
Yes, we're talking about this relief like it's a gift from the heavens. Here you go, small business owner, have a free year.
It sounds lovely.
But there is a catch. A massive administrative catch that feels almost designed to trip people up.
It's the worse off trap, yes. This is where so many people get caught out.
The source states this very clearly. SBRR is not automatic.
I cannot stress this enough. If there is one single thing listeners take away from this entire deep dive today, let it be this. The government does not automatically give you this discount.
That seems so counterintuitive.
I know.
They know your RV? They literally set the RV.
True.
They know who you are. Why on earth don't they just apply the discount on the bill?
Because the criteria for small business rate relief aren't just about the physical building. They are about you and your wider business structure.
What do you mean?
They need to verify that you are actually eligible. And specifically, they need to verify that this is your only business property.
Ah.
The local council doesn't automatically know if you have another shop in the next town over
Yeah.
under a different council's jurisdiction.
Right.
So the default position of the council is to protect their revenue.
Yeah.
They assume you don't qualify, and they send you the full bill.
So imagine this. It's March 2026.
Okay.
I'm that graphic designer with the 12,000-pound office. I get a brown envelope in the mail.
You open it up.
I open it up, completely expecting it to say 0 pounds due. Instead, it says amount due, 5,184 pounds.
Panic sets in.
Pure panic. And if I just assume, oh, well, that must be right. The government sent it. They know math, and I just pay it.
You have literally thrown 5,000 pounds away.
Effectively, yes.
Effectively, yes. I mean, you can try to claim it back later when you realize your mistake, but good luck with the paperwork and the wait times for a refund.
And cash flow is king.
Exactly.
Yes.
You have paid out money you did not need to pay. You are worse off purely because you didn't fill out a form.
That is wild to me. So you have to proactively apply to your local council to get the zero bill.
You have to apply. It's usually a simple form, often online on the council website.
What do you have to say on it?
You basically just declare, I occupy this property, it is my only property, and I want the relief.
But you have to do it.
You have to raise your hand and ask for it.
It is my only property. That's a key phrase you just slipped in there.
It is. And that leads us beautifully into the complexities.
Hmm.
Because businesses grow, right?
That's the dream.
You start with one office,
Then maybe you need a warehouse.
or a second shop, or just a tiny storage unit for old files.
Which brings us to Section 5, complexities and exceptions. Because nothing in tax is ever simple.
Never.
This is where the growth paradox kicks in.
The general rule for small business rate relief is that it only applies if you use just one property.
Period.
The moment you take on a second property anywhere in England, you usually lose the relief on the first one.
So let's go back to our freelance graphic designer.
Okay?
She's in her 12,000-pound office. She applied for the relief. She's paying zero. Life is good.
Living the dream.
But she's successful. She's drowning in physical files and mock-ups. She needs an archive room.
Makes sense.
She finds a little lockup down the road. It's tiny. The landlord says it's cheap. The rateable value is only 3,000 pounds.
And she thinks, great, 3,000 is a small number. I can afford the rates on that. It'll just be a few £100.
So she signs the lease on the lockup. What just happened to her tax bill?
She just detonated her financial year.
Oh, no.
This is what we call the expansion trap.
Why? What did she do?
Because by taking on that second property, the storage unit, she has violated the one property rule.
Even though it's tiny.
Even though it's tiny. Because the second property is 3,000 pounds RV, she loses the relief on her main property.
Wait, so her bill for the main office goes from 0 to 5,184 pounds.
Instantly.
Just, he rented a closet.
Plus, she has to pay the rates on the new storage unit as well.
That's insane.
So that quote-unquote cheap storage unit just cost her over £5,000 in new tax, plus the rent on the unit. It's a total catastrophe.
That is the government effectively penalizing you for growing. It's like, how dare you expand? Pay us everything back.
It really feels like that. And it catches so many small businesses out when they try to scale up slightly.
But there is a loophole, isn't there? The source mentions an exception.
There is an exception, and this is where the strategy really comes into play.
Walk us through the exception, because you can keep the relief under very specific conditions.
Right. You can keep the 100% relief on your main property if two strict conditions are met.
Okay, condition 1.
First, the total rateable value of all your properties combined must be less than £28,000.
Okay, let's test our example. Main office was $12K, plus the new storage unit at $3K.
12 plus 3 is 15.
So $15K is under $28K. We pass the first test.
You pass the aggregate test.
Phew.
But there is a second test.
Of course there is.
Each of the additional properties, so the new ones you take on, must have a rateable value of less than £2,900.
Less than $2,900.
That is the magic number for expansion.
Oh. So in our example, the storage unit she found was $3,000.
She fails the second test.
He loses everything.
She loses the relief.
But if she had just found a unit with an RV of $2,800...
She passes the test. She keeps the 100% relief on her main office. She pays normal rates on the small storage unit, because you don't get relief on the second one, but her main bill stays at zero.
That is a massive difference. That is over £5,000 of tax, resting on a valuation difference of just £200 on a storage unit.
This is exactly why we say knowledge is power in business.
It's unbelievable.
If you don't know the 2,900 threshold exists, you might sign a lease for a 3,000 unit thinking it's cheap, not realizing it triggers a tax bomb on your HQ.
Triggers a tax bomb. I like that. It's dramatic, but it's totally accurate.
It's the reality.
It feels like navigating a minefield. One wrong step forgetting to apply for SBRR or expanding into a slightly too big storage unit, and boom, your costs explode.
It creates a lot of administrative friction. It forces business owners to be property tax experts, which they usually aren't.
Right. They want to bake bread or design websites or sell shoes.
They don't want to study VOA valuation manuals to figure out if they're compliant with subsection 4, paragraph B.
Which brings us nicely to section 6. Is there a way to just opt out?
Opt out of the whole system.
Yeah. Is there a way to say, I don't want to do this math. I don't want to talk to the local council. I don't want to worry about 2,900 thresholds. I just want to pay a bill and be done with it.
There is. And it's becoming increasingly popular for exactly this reason.
We are talking about the strategic alternatives.
Serviced office space.
We see these everywhere now. The co-working hubs, the flexible workspaces, they're completely ubiquitous.
Exactly. And from a business rates perspective, they offer a completely different proposition.
How so?
Well, when you sign a lease for a traditional office, you become the rateable occupier.
The person the council points the finger at.
You are liable. The council chases you for the money. You are the one who has to fill out all the forms we just talked about.
Right.
When you sign a license for a serviced office, the provider is usually the rateable occupier of the whole building.
The provider. So they get the big bill. They get the huge brown envelope with the massive number on it.
They get the massive bill. And it's probably calculated at the higher standard multiplier because it's a big building.
Okay, but how does that help me?
Because they take that huge bill and they slice it up. They charge you a single, all-inclusive monthly fee.
Rent, utilities, internet.
Cleaning, the fancy coffee machine, and business rates. It's all bundled into one invoice.
So if I'm a freelancer in a serviced office, I don't have an RV.
You personally, no. Your desk or your little glass box doesn't have a separate entry in the rating list, usually. You just pay your monthly invoice to the provider.
So let's do the better off analysis on this. Do you actually benefit? Is this financially smarter?
It depends on your persona, really.
Okay.
If you look at it purely on a price per square foot basis, the serviced office is almost always more expensive.
You are paying a premium.
Of course. You're paying for the free coffee, the cool lobby, the receptionist.
And the flexibility.
But if you are the person who hates admin, who is terrified of forgetting to file that SBRR form.
Or who is worried about expanding and triggering that tax bomb we talked about.
Exactly. Then yes, you benefit massively. You have zero direct tax liability to the council. You have total cost certainty.
But are you paying more for the rates specifically? Because surely the provider is just passing that high tier 1 tax cost down to you.
They are passing it on, yes. But remember, they are often operating huge buildings.
Right.
They might be negotiating aggressively with the VOA, appealing their rates globally, or simply spreading that cost over hundreds of members.
Economies of scale.
Exactly. So, while you are paying a premium for the convenience, you might be benefiting from bulk rate savings that are baked into the price of your desk.
That's a really good point. Plus, there's the scalability factor.
Oh, it's huge.
If you are in a traditional lease and you need to knock through a wall to expand or move to a bigger unit next door, that triggers a whole new interaction with the council.
New assessment, new RV, new potential to completely lose your relief. It's a nightmare.
The source calls it the revaluation headache.
It's a very real headache. In a serviced office, if you hire 2 more people and need 2 more desks, you just upgrade your plan.
You just click a button on an app.
The rates don't change for you. You don't have to fill out a government form. You just pay a bit more rent to the provider.
So the core argument here is that you are paying for agility. You are paying to completely remove the risk of rate shock.
You are outsourcing the headache. And for many SMEs in 2026, especially in tech or fast-moving sectors, that peace of mind is worth the premium.
They're happy to pay a bit more to know they will never, ever see a brown envelope from the VOA.
It's a compelling argument. It really comes down to how much you value your time versus your money.
If you are willing to navigate the forms and the thresholds, the traditional route with SBRR is probably cheaper.
Usually, yes.
But if you want to move fast and break things, maybe serviced is the way to go.
I think that's a very fair summary. It's about your risk appetite and your tolerance for bureaucracy.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We've gone from the vocabulary to the math, to the reliefs, the loopholes, and the alternatives. Let's try to bring this home.
Let's summarize the key takeaways.
Yeah, for our listener who is sitting there maybe checking their banking app right now, wondering what they actually need to do next.
Takeaway number 1, the number.
The 43.2p multiplier.
If your rateable value is under £51,000, this is your multiplier for 2026. Make sure your actual bill reflects this.
If you see a multiplier starting with a 5 and you are a small business, challenge it immediately.
That 11 pence difference is your profit margin. Don't let them take it.
Takeaway number 2, the calculation.
RV times 0.432 equals your gross bill. Know that number.
Don't wait for the envelope to arrive to know what you owe.
Calculate it yourself. And if the bill the council sends is higher, ask why.
Takeaway number 3, the relief.
If your RV is £12,000 or under, you should be paying 0. But, and I will say it one more time, you must apply.
Do not assume it is automatic.
If you haven't applied, you are literally donating money to the council.
And finally, takeaway number 4, the alternative.
If this all sounds like too much, or if you plan on growing rapidly and don't want the expansion trap, look at serviced offices.
You change the cost structure from a variable tax liability to a fixed commercial fee.
You pay a premium, but you buy freedom from administration.
So, the final verdict. Based on everything we've read in the 43.2p multiplier, are businesses better off or worse off in 2026?
It's incredibly nuanced. You are better off because the 43.2p rate protects you from the higher standard tax.
Right.
You are definitely better off if you utilize the SBRR correctly and pay 0.
What?
But you are significantly worse off if you are passive.
If you just let it happen to you.
If you fail to apply, or if you sit just above that 15,000 taper threshold without realizing you could appeal it.
Or if you rent that 3,000-pound storage unit.
You are in a painful position.
The system really rewards the informed and punishes the oblivious.
That is the history of taxation in a nutshell.
It really is. I want to leave the listener with a thought you mentioned earlier during our prep for this deep dive.
Okay.
We tend to think of taxes as these immovable objects, death and taxes, right?
Yeah.
We think there's nothing we can do.
We do. We obsess over negotiating 50 quid off our rent. We haggle with suppliers over the price of paper.
But then a rates bill arrives for £12,000 and we just blindly pay it.
We treat it as fixed. But what this deep dive has shown us is that it isn't entirely fixed.
Right.
You can appeal your RV, you can apply for relief, you can restructure your property portfolio to stay under thresholds.
You can choose a unit with an RV of $2,800 instead of $3,000.
You can move to a serviced office.
Yeah.
It is actually a variable cost, but only if you treat it like one.
If you treat it as invisible, it stays fixed. If you engage with it, you can control it.
Exactly.
That is a powerful shift in mindset. It's not a bill, it's a variable you can influence.
And that leads to a really interesting question for the future, doesn't it?
What's that?
If businesses start treating physical space purely as a variable cost, and more people flock to serviced offices or remote work to avoid this tax completely,
Oh, I see where you're going.
how long can the government actually sustain a tax model based purely on square footage?
That's a fascinating point. The physical property tax model might actually be breaking down.
If nobody is signing traditional leases anymore because the rates are too punitive, the government's going to have to reinvent business taxes entirely.
They might have to abolish rates as we know them.
Something to think about.
Definitely. So, here's your homework, listeners. Right now, today, go find your rateable value.
It's public record.
Google, find my business rates valuation. Type in your postcode, see what the number is.
Is it 12,000? Is it 12,500? Is it 51,500?
Knowing that number is the first step to knowing if you're leaving money on the table.
And if you haven't applied for SBRR and you think you're eligible, stop listening to us and go call the council.
Seriously, go do it now. That's it for this deep dive into the financial weeds of 2026.
We hope you feel a little more empowered.
A little less confused and ready to tackle that brown envelope when it lands on your doormat.
Thanks for joining us.
Catch you next time.